I have an amazing guest today. She's a new author, she's a new mother, but she's also one of those smart individuals who is studying psychology. And my goodness, the information that she is going to deliver to us today, I'm telling you, it's going to change our minds. It's going to help us to understand and become more conscious of the skin that we're in and how this skin that we're in can be a limitation or it can help us to excel in our own unique ways of who we are. Who are we talking about? My special guest is Marjorie Frenette, and she has written a children's book called What's Wrong with My Skin. It's the moment you've been waiting for. It's a conversation that must be had today and not tomorrow. Welcome to another episode of I'm Listening, I'm Ready with your host, Andrew E. Guy. Let's talk about it. My guest, Marjorie, welcome to the ILIRPODCAST. Say what's up to the people.
What's up, everyone? Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, Marjorie, I'm excited. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. And so the best place I'm going to start is just kind of you tell the people a little bit more about you and what you do. I know you're in school, you're studying your master's, you're a new mom. There's a lot of new things going on. Could you just help bridge the gap to help them get to know who you are?
Yes. So first and foremost, I am a student. Well, I guess I am a human being. And I'm a new mom. But before I gave birth, I made a book called What's Wrong with My Skin. And it's a children's book about a character named Ligaya, which is in our language, it means I'm from Philippines. So Ligaya means joy, actually. And I actually go by Joy too at home. So everyone calls me Joy. And yeah, so it's about pretty much based off my childhood experiences in Philippines where everything is all about whitening skin products from lotion to soap to astringents to everything. And even the commercials, that's what the message is all about, like get lighter skin, get better, like get famous, get better chances of being noticed if your skin is lighter, or what I should say.
Wow.
Yeah. So I came up with it because first of all, like we all have those bucket lists, I guess, that we want to achieve someday. And I'm like, I really want to make one. And knowing that I'm going to be a mom, I might not have time anymore.
That's great. That's excellent.
Yeah. So I really, but I've always been wanting to have that message come across because I feel like, not that I'm the only one, but no one is talking about it, even though we all grew up knowing that what we were brought up.
So the concept really is powerful. First of all, what's wrong with my skin? I absolutely love the title because a lot of times we focus on what's wrong with us or what's not working instead of what is working. What's right with me? And so I want to start off the conversation by talking to you, helping us to understand. First, can we talk about at least three things right off the top that you know is right with us before we talk about what's wrong with us? Can you help us understand that? What do you think is right with us?
What's right with us is our skin tone. There's nothing wrong with it. We are created this way. We grew up in a different temperature, so naturally our skin tone will be different from one another. I think that's one of the first things. And our looks, there's nothing wrong with our looks because it's always what they say is it depends on how you perceive yourself. And sometimes we look on others to compare ourselves, and then that's when the clash begins. So there's really nothing wrong with our skin or nothing wrong with our looks. And the other thing I find it's not wrong is to feel sometimes those negative emotions about us, because it's okay. Like sometimes we have the tendency to, like, when we're sad, everyone, or when somebody tells you I'm sad, and then your tendency is to fix it and make them feel good. But sometimes it's okay to feel good. Emotion is an emotion, whether it's negative or good. Like positive or negative, it's still an emotion, and we're just human beings, and we don't have to always control it, like like how we grew up, like, because we were, I guess we were brought up in like, no, hold it in, hold it in. But sometimes it's okay. So it's not wrong, it's okay.
But let me interject here for a second. What I'm hearing you're saying is that here are all these things. There is a plethora of things that are so right with us,
Mhm.
right? But we haven't really tapped into it, but we focus on the things that are negative. You also mentioned about environment and how, based on where we live on planet Earth, based on the amount of exposure that the skin get to the sun, will determine the lighter or darker. But the big picture of what I'm getting from you is that we don't have to fix
Yeah.
everything. Like, we're trying to make, if we're sad, oh, I want to be happier. And if I'm happy, maybe this is not normal for me to be happy. Maybe there should be some sadness in there. Maybe I should feel guilty because there are other people who are sad in the world. Why do you think we have this propensity to want to fix ourselves? Can you talk to us about that?
Well, this is just my personal opinion. I just think that because of everything that we're seeing now, especially in social media, that we tend to compare ourselves to others. So if we're not living the way others are living, or we don't look the way they do, we have to, like, oh my God, something is wrong with me because everyone looks exactly like them. Like now you look on television, everyone looks like the Kardashians, and something. So like, if you're not in, if I don't have multi-million followers, I'm not doing enough. you know we tend to do that. And even though the problem is, if everyone is telling you that you should fix it, you tend to look inwards. It's like the title of my book, What's Wrong with My Skin. We tend to look inward instead of starting to look, wait, there's nothing really wrong with me. It's just everyone just accepted the fact that we should live this way. I feel like that's what it is for
You,
me.
you know what's interesting that you just said, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I really think that most of what we're saying is not what people are saying about us, but
Mm-hmm.
is our interpretation of what we think
Mm-hmm.
others are saying about us, that we have basically succumb to the whether it be a positive or negative experience, that we are basically living this life because we're basically just conjure up this based on what we think others are saying about us. But I want to piggyback to what you talk about, the lighter version of us. Is it lighter is better? What's the issue there? What's wrong with that concept? Lighter is better. What is wrong with that?
Well, if I go back to the concept of my book and based on my experience,
Right.
it's just when I grew up,
Mhm.
I don't know how it happened, but all I could conjure with historical based, we were conquered, well, by the Spaniards for almost 300 years. So Philippines, and there's like a connotation for, if you have dark skin, that then you were like the lower class back then, because you were doing the labor job, right? Like you're doing the farming, you're doing pretty much everything that the Spaniards won't do back in the day. That's how. And then, it's 300 years. It's not easy to take that out from our system culturally and mentally. So it's just deeply embedded in us. And then after that, Americans came to our country. We saw Hollywood. Like there's no, and then everyone. It's all about representation, I guess. So
Mhm.
it's just when you see Hollywood stars on your TV and there's no one that looks like you, you're starting to think like, maybe I need to look like them so I could have these opportunities that they have. Like, but now, like now we're seeing more and more representation, which is I'm really happy about, because then when my kid grows older, she'll see others who look like her.
I
And
absolutely love that fact that you're talking about. And sorry to cut you, but when you talk about representation, the representation to me really kind of mean there is more that looks like me. So you
yeah,
may be seeing this on TV, but there is more that looks like me that's not being represented. So I love the concept that you're talking about that, I'm now a mother. I am now in a different role or stage in my life. So what I need to do, I need to make sure that my child that's coming after me in this world understand that there is more like her, and it's okay for her to be comfortable in her own skin. Does that sound like what I'm trying to say, or what you're trying to say, or does that sound like we resonate? Does that connect with what you're saying, or tell me if I'm too much left field
yeah,
or right field, or I'm on the nail?
you're definitely right. Like it's all about when we're seeing, because like I said, for the longest time that we, like in Philippines, all you see is like everyone's encouraging everyone to get lighter skin. It's because that's what we're seeing before, right? But now that in Hollywood there's even Asians, like not just only Chinese. Before it's only just Chinese, but now you see like other kinds of Asians. There's Koreans, and like Koreans are actually killing it right now.
You know what's crazy though, Marjorie?
Yeah.
I think that the new Hollywood is the better version of Hollywood. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just me, knock on wood, whatever you want to call it. I really think that the new Hollywood is the best Hollywood because now we got representation. I mean, I didn't know that person could do that. I didn't know that person could do it. I didn't know that person can sing like that. I didn't know that
Yes.
Filipinos can sing, or people of different skin tone can do that. I think and Hollywood is going to get better as we
Mhm.
move forward. And I would really love to get your perspective on this. You mentioned it earlier on. I want to piggyback and jump back to that. You talk really about, the colonization and 300 years. I am originally from Jamaica, so we were conquered by, I wouldn't say conquered. I have a different phraseology for that. We were colonized,
Yes.
by the Spaniards. We
Language is
were
important.
That's right. We were colonized by the English, and then we were colonized again by the French. And so we came up out of this three different era of colonization, and we developed a language by our heroine, which is a female hero, and her name is Nanny. She came up with the language patois. Trois in French means three. Pat means to speak. So patois is mean three language in one. And we created this dialect, and the slaves used it, or the oppressed people, my people, used this to create their getaways and to conquer those people who were there with us. So I don't think that we were conquered. We were temporarily colonized, because if we were conquered, we would have been out, we'd have been dead, and our people are still living strong and doing some amazing thing. Usain Bolt is only a tip of the iceberg of the amount of people coming out of Jamaica that are doing some amazing things. So I just kind of, what is your thought on that? Who is your hero now? Who is your person that is doing well in Hollywood space or social media space that is saying, wow, I feel I am represented? Can you talk to us about that?
To be honest, I don't watch much TV.
Me either.
Yes. Yeah, but I always, not that she represents me, but the books that she has written has influenced me a lot, I guess, and even prepared me to my motherhood, is Brene Brown. Like and recently she wrote the Atlas of the Heart, and it's really interesting because even for regular readers that not necessarily have to take psychology or social work, I think it's a very good book for language. Like when you piggyback on conquered versus colonialism, like I said, my mom brain is scaring me because I might say, like, I'm running out of words sometimes, and I'm sometimes in my head I still translate some words in English because, like, now that I'm home a lot, I'm not speaking a lot to any other people except to my mom and the baby, and my husband. So that's how I speak English. But but still, I in my head I still speak my language, which is Tagalog.
But
Uh,
can you help me understand, like, what is it like for a Filipino Canadian to be in Canada in
mhm.
your skin, and what are some of the challenges that you experience from Filipino, Canadian, and then I have another part I want to ask you about how does that translate over into your study of psychology where you are right now. So let's start with the piece on how are you surviving as a Filipino Canadian in Canadian society?
I guess like it's not really bad. I'm blessed with the community that I have right now. Like they're very inclusive. Although like in my first year, I would say it was quite a struggle because like sometimes well like just understanding the money is kind of hard for me. And there would because your skin is different, they always assume you're not from here. And when I say they, it's not the majority really. It's the ones that haven't really seen outside people, like you can tell that which ones were educated in a way of inclusivity over those who just have close-mindedness, I guess. But yeah, like I started working at Burger King, and sometimes I had a customer who would say like, "Can I have someone who speaks English?" But I am speaking English. It's just that they have a coupon that I
They
don't.
may want a different kind of English. That's probably what it is. They say, what kind of English do you need? That's what I'll ask.
Yeah, and then you'd always be asked, like, "So how long have you been here?" But sometimes I just like out of out of like boredom in my work, I would just say, "Oh, I was born here," and then you'd see the reaction. But I'm not born here. I was born in the Philippines. But like sometimes you want to play the game.
You know what though, the game it's something that we play to also accommodate those who are culturally insecure, and we play the game to make it. I don't want to put up with the headache right now, so let me just play the game. I was also experiencing this kind of play the game mindset when I was a teacher in Jacksonville, Florida, and I served there for several years. And one of the things that I get was that you're not from around here. I am not from around here because I didn't sound like them, even though I may have dark skin like many of the other people that I see there or in my school. They say, "Well, you're not from around here. You got an accent. You ain't from here." So I'm like, "Where are you from?" And then it became interesting. But I brought that up, Marjorie, because a lot of times the people who are close-minded, who lack inclusivity, these people are culturally deprived. And you know what's crazy about that, but it's also unique and interesting, is that this is why most people go on vacation, not just to get away from the rat race, but they go because they want to learn about different cultures. Some people may go to the Philippines, they may go to Fiji, they may go to Jamaica, they may go to different islands, they may go to Africa. They're like, I need to learn. There's some parts in us that long for growth and inclusivity and diverse. There's some part of it that needs that. And I so love the book, What's Wrong with My Skin. I think the next part should be What's Right with My Skin. I think we should talk about doing that next version of the book. What do you think about that?
Yes, definitely.
So I'm throwing that out there. And I really love to even connect with you and partner up with you to help you write that next one. What's right? And then we can talk about 10 things that are right with my skin, and while we're focusing on the wrong thing instead of the right things.
Yes. But I just want to go back to like when we began our conversation, when we were saying what's wrong with we tend to look in ourselves, and
yes
we have the tendency to like look into others as well. And then you talked about external factors, and it's the thing with belonging and fitting in, right? That's the concept of that, and your self-worth, because self-worth is just your right to be loved, and that's not something that requires anything. And this is talked about too by Brene Brown and many other scholars, because there's difference. Like we have self-esteem, yes, although like part of self-esteem, self-worth is part of that. And your self-worth, sometimes we base it off other people, although technically you shouldn't, because it's our birthright to be loved, like we to exist. It's the right to exist, right?
Yes.
But sometimes when this environmental influence, and you wanted to belong, because we are species that want to belong, of all the animals. We always want that. And you want to find connection. So if your connection, if everyone, especially with young kids, right? That's why I wrote this. I tended to write this for the young kids because at least early on in their lives, they can say that, not because everyone is doing this, I have to do it. And that's the difference between belonging and fitting in. Fitting in is trying to fit in the mold, do try to be like everyone else so you can belong, so you can blend in. But belonging is being loved by who you are, and the hard part is you have to belong to yourself first, and you have to love yourself. That, but that's easy to say, but it's learned. And even I had this journey, like I learned this from my course. um like it's not that, because I remember being no, sorry, I remember telling someone, you have to love yourself. And then she told me, well, it's easy to say, but it's not that. And she kind of have a point, because I grew up with a loving environment. Not everyone grew up with a loving environment. So it's easy to say, but it's a journey to love yourself. Even though, like, I'm saying this, that it's for the kids, but it's nice for them to learn that it's okay to love yourself. And it's not selfishness. It's different from selfishness, because selfishness is just not sharing anything, and
I absolutely love your rendition of that, and I want to kind of steer the wheel a little bit, because now I know that you're studying psychology, and I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit about the biopsychosocial aspects of the childhood and how does it impact the adulthood. My rendition of it is that the childhood or the adulthood is a precipitation of the biopsychosocial factors of the childhood. And as these background come into play, or I should say interact with other environment, other cultures, then we get to identify and re-identify what's most important to us. So can you please help me understand how the skin tone, how do we see ourselves? How does that help us on this so-called journey that you spoke about? How does that help us on this journey to become a more full self, or to love ourselves, so that we can feel that love and be loved, so we can feel like we belong anywhere on planet Earth? How do you help us to understand that?
I think it's important that you know your identity first. Like, regarding, for example, your skin tone.
Mm.
So, like, I have nieces who grew up here, but they have my skin tone, and they go to classes and they wonder why don't they have blonde hair, and they don't have, like, the skin that their classmates have. So it's very important that you understand first, why do you look this way, right? Like, is it because of genetics, right? Like, because regardless of, like, in Canada, we don't get much sun.
That's correct. That's correct.
But we still look this way, right?
Right.
Like, some of us still look dark. So it's genetics. So it's important that you explain that right away to your kids, for them to understand it. But for the journey, you have to learn that, yeah, it's part of my cultural identity. It's part of my parents that passed on to me. And when you understand that, then you get to, start appreciating, because I think appreciating starts from understanding. So
Do,
when you start to understand and you appreciate it. Okay, so right, go ahead.
no, 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 no.
Oh,
Something just came up as soon as you mentioned about the understanding.
mhm,
And I want to tie this to identity.
mhm.
Understanding where we are, understanding our values, understanding our just our idiosyncrasies. So we have this understanding. How does understanding help us to? I wouldn't say perfect, but it helps us to solidify our identity of who we are anywhere on planet Earth. That means we don't have to fit into a mold, but
Yeah.
we need to understand that we belong and we have the ability to contribute to in our workplace, in our school, in our family, or even in society. How does having a better understanding of ourselves help us to solidify our identity? Could you speak about that for the young people who are watching nowadays?
Okay, so I think when you start understanding things, it's kind of hard. You stop judging, first of all. right? Because like being a psychologist, well, I'm not a psychologist right now, but I am a student of psychology. And the first thing that we're thought of is to have self-awareness. And when you have self-awareness, then you become aware of, wait, what, why am I acting like this? Is it really me? The like, was it what I said, or was it the other person said? And why is it affecting me the way he said the things that he said? So when you start thinking of those things, when you start having awareness, when you start being present to everything that is happening, you have less time to judge, but you have more time to actually understand and absorb what is going on. Because right now we're just always all just hearing and not listening. That's the difference. There's a big difference between that,
I'm
right? Like,
excited. I'm excited that you said that, Marjorie. I'm so excited you said that we're hearing, but we're not listening. That's
yeah,
the reason why our podcast is called I'm Listening and I'm Ready. And I think most people hear, but
yeah,
they're not ready to take the steps or to do the
yeah,
work to change
exactly.
themselves, right? And
Yeah,
so another concept I talk about all the time, I said, we're busy looking outside of the window. That's looking at the crowd and what they're doing,
exactly.
but we're not looking in the mirror to do a self-assessment of who we are, what are
Yes.
skills, what are the gifts and talents we have, and how do those contribute to society. I
And
am so pumped and excited about this conversation right
thank
now.
you.
So pumped.
And just to add in, right? Like, so when you have awareness, you try to understand too, why do I react this way? Because then you go back and look, what made me react this way sometimes when people tell me this and this and this. Like when people used to ask me before, like, why do you look like that? Like, as a young person, I was like, what's the problem? Is there a problem? But now you're like, well, I actually am from Philippines, instead of just starting an argument. Because sometimes we assume too that some people are racist, but sometimes they're just curious. It's just the way that they ask things, right? But then when you have those reactions, those are the sometimes the traumas that you've been through, and it's affecting. That's when you talk about the biopsychosocial, right? It's it's the it's those things that happened to you in the past. It's part of that, and it had, like what you said, it's the accumulation of what you are now. But the good thing about that is, no matter how or what happened in our past, our cognition is very flexible, so we can always update that. And I think that's the problem. Sometimes people just are just like, no, this is me, this is what I've become because of the things before. But it's not always like that. We can always update the things by learning things and by understanding ourselves and others. But it's always, we always say you can understand others, but it's easier sometimes to just understand yourself first before you deal with others.
I absolutely love this. I absolutely am enjoying this. I am just soaking this up. If you see my pen moving like that, it's really because you're saying some things that need to be written down. Because, when we talk about, the biopsychosocial aspects of our childhood and how it plays out in our adulthood,
Yeah.
a lot of times, you mentioned something about how we think about ourselves. But I also would like to interject and say that childhood is about laying down the foundation, is about sowing the seeds, and then adulthood is reaping the fruit of those seeds that we sow in our early years. Hence, it is so applicable and it's so imperative that we make sure we're sowing the right seed, and not just sowing the right seed, but creating the right environment to nurture those seeds so we can have right fruit. I didn't say good, better, or best fruit, right
Right.
fruit.
Yes.
And my understanding of right, Marjorie, it means that it works for living human beings. It works. That means it's not righter or more right. It just works. Because if I treat you right, that means I'm doing justice to myself. And I am also being non-judgmental because I'm curious about who you are as a person, how you're contributing to the world, and how that's going to make a difference in my life. So I should be what? We should be celebrating in each other. And that's exactly how I see it. My gosh, this conversation is just amazing. And I'm so glad that we got this time to talk. And I'm looking forward to doing this again. Please say yes. I hope you're going to come back. We got to continue this.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be going back to school in January, so right now is my most free time, and I'm actually scared that I might not be able to. to talk to you a lot because of I've been resting at home.
That's not a problem. I completely understand that. And so I know that as we're coming up to the end part of our talk today, I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to kind of tell people about where they can find your book, how they can get your book, and why they need to get it. Where, how they can get it, why they need to get it. Go ahead, take it away.
So if you're seeing this video, you can get my book, What's Wrong with My Skin, on Amazon.com and .ca, or wherever you are in Amazon worldwide. It's available in Barnes and Nobles as well. And if you're in Canada, it's available in your local Indigo stores. And I think I highly suggest that you read this book to your kids, if not you, because actually the message is for everyone, but it's written for kids, that way they can understand it too. But it's good because it's not only representing other culture, like not the usual characters that we see, but we also can understand the effects of dictating how you should look like, or the influences at least of social media and mainstream media on our kids, to understand that it's okay to embrace your uniqueness and your individuality, and you don't necessarily have to go into the peer pressure of everyone else, whatever. And yes, and I hope that you support my book. I'm new to this, but regardless of my sales, I am happy to share the message of this book, because I think it's something that we should have a conversation about.
That's fantastic. And where can they find you, Marjorie? Because I know that you got to be out there. Tell them where they can find you, their website, any social handle, that kind of stuff. Can you tell them where they can find you? Because I want people to jump off this thing and go and find you like ASAP.
Thank you. My website is www.marjoriefrenette.com, and I'm on Facebook as well, Marjorie Frenette. And I don't go on Twitter much, but I have my account there, and I have my Instagram account, author.marjoriefrenette.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Andrew E. Guy on the ILIRPODCAST of Listen, I'm Ready. It is the podcast that's dedicated for those who are on the go. Whether you're traveling by land, air, or sea, this is me, Andrew E. Guy, and I'm having this amazing conversation with my new friend, Miss Marjorie Frenette, a future psychologist, psychotherapist, current mom, new mom, and changing the next generation so they can understand that it's not where you're standing, it's the skin that you're living in, but you also have access to be the person that you're created to be, fearfully and wonderfully made. And it doesn't matter where you are on planet Earth. You deserve to be loved, you deserve to be appreciated, and it's how you think about yourself that makes the difference. Not so much about what others think, it's what you think. There's a great book by James Allen. He said, As a Man Thinketh. I would really encourage you to go get a copy of that book. And we'll put the link of that inside the description. Get a copy of the book, As a Man Thinketh, because how you think will determine how you live. And so this has been Andrew Guy and Marjorie Frenette saying, until next time, take care of yourself. Have a wonderful day. Peace. Until then, take care. Peace. Until next time, keep listening, live ready, talk soon.